Richard Marino. Okay, so today I am going to be talking to you about the regulation of the gastric phase of digestion. So to begin, I included a slide on the overview of the phases of digestion. It consists of three phases: the cephalic phase, the gastric phase, and the intestinal phase. In the cephalic phase, this is the stage where the stomach responds to the mere sight, smell, taste, or even the thought of food. You start salivating more, etc. The gastric phase, which is what I'm going to be talking to you about today, is the phase where swallowed food and semi-digested protein activate gastric activity. And the final phase is the intestinal phase, and this is the stage where the duodenum responds to the arriving chyme, and it moderates the gastric activity through hormone release and nervous reflexes. So here is an overview of the gastric phase of digestion. Um, this is where ingested food stimulates gastric activity in two ways, by stretching the stomach and by gastric contents stimulating receptors in the stomach. And then the stretching of the stomach actually activates two reflexes, which is a short reflex and a long reflex. In the short reflex, this is mediated through myenteric nerve plexus, and the long reflex is mediated through the vagus nerves and the brainstem. Some key components and methods of regulation of the gastric phase of digestion. The distension path, which is stretching, another word for stretching. This includes the vagal-vagal reflex and local ENS pathway, which is the enteric nervous system. In the vagal-vagal reflex, distension or stretching activates an afferent pathway, which in turn stimulates efferent responses from the dorsal nucleus of the vagus nerve. And for the local ENS pathway, the activated enteric nervous system releases acetylcholine, stimulating parietal cells to secrete acid. Another part or component of this phase is chemical activation. And so in this phase, as dietary protein is digested, it breaks down into smaller peptides and amino acids, which directly stimulate the G cells to secrete even more gastrin, which is a positive feedback loop that accelerates protein digestion. Gastrin stimulates by activating parietal cells and stimulating ECL to produce histamine. And this histamine stimulates parietal cells to produce even more acid. Small peptides also buffer the stomach acid so the pH doesn't fall excessively low. We don't want that. Gastric secretion is stimulated chiefly by three chemicals. One is acetylcholine, two is histamine, and three is gastrin. Acetylcholine is secreted by parasympathetic nerve fibers of both the short and the long reflex. Histamine is a paracrine secretion from the enteroendocrine cells in the gastric glands. Gastrin is a hormone produced by enteroendocrine G cells in the pyloric glands. And all three of these chemicals stimulate parietal cells to secrete hydrochloric acid and intrinsic factor. The chief cells secrete pepsinogen in response to gastrin, and especially acetylcholine. And acetylcholine also stimulates mucus secretion in the stomach. Lastly is the inhibitory pathway. If basically low pH in the stomach stimulates antral D cells to release somatostatin. And somatostatin actually inhibits the gastrin release from the G cells, and meaning reduced gastrin secretion reduces acid secretion. So that, yeah. In the last slide, I will be talking about things that can go wrong with the gastric phase, or during the gastric phase, I should say. and that's called something called Zollinger-Ellison syndrome. This is characterized by tumor growth in the pancreas or the upper part of the small intestine. These tumors are called gastrinomas, and these tumors produce large amounts of the gastrin hormone. Gastrin causes the stomach to produce too much acid as in response to these tumors, which leads to peptic ulcers in the stomach. And these high gastrin levels can also cause diarrhea, abdominal pain, and other symptoms such as a burning sensation, aching or discomfort in the upper part of the abdomen, acid reflux or heartburn, burping, nausea or vomiting, bleeding in the digestive tract, losing weight without trying, or a loss of appetite.